Hi all, Mr. Coleman here, Counseling Department Chair at Jones, giving you an overview of our senior post-secondary family event held on September 9th during Back to School Night. It was originally facilitated by me and Mrs. Schnatterbeck, another counselor here at Jones. So a quick overview of the agenda. We'll talk through the senior counseling program, give you some highlights from the first senior seminar that we did with our seniors, last week. And then we'll go through some roles and responsibilities for students, for parents and guardians, as well as counselors, go through some next steps, do a quick overview of financial aid and scholarships, and close out with some highlights for counseling supports that students and families can expect throughout the year. This presentation is very college heavy. If students are considering other post-secondary pathways, counselors absolutely support this. We just ask that students and families reach out to counselors as soon as possible to give us a sense of what that other alternative post-secondary plan might be so that we can make sure we're putting in supports to help that student throughout the school year and beyond. Quick overview of counseling programs. So as I mentioned, we've already done our first senior seminar of the year. We did our presentation at Back to School Night. We have senior conferences starting on Monday, September 13th. Those will be one-on-one conversations between students and counselors taking place throughout the day for the next series of weeks, where counselors will have an opportunity to check in with students on their post-secondary plan, any issues or concerns that have come up for the students, talk through financial aid questions if students have them, and then check in around self-care, since as part of our first senior seminar of the year, we did work with students to set self-care goals in each counselor's Google Classroom. In October, we will be providing FAFSA, that's the free application for federal student aid, as well as alternative app for Illinois aid workshops. Those are the two main financial aid applications that students will do, either the FAFSA or the alternative app. Both are required for graduation, and we'll talk about that in a second. And these will be workshops not necessarily giving the overview of what these applications are. Those resources are already in Google Classroom for students and families, and we've emailed those out to families via the JCP Counselors Corner email. But these workshops will be really around legitimately working on the applications, and students and families will receive more information in the coming weeks on those, and these workshops will be offered in English and Spanish. Starting really September of this school year, this is breaking news, we will be doing college admissions rep visits. We will have students coming together at Jones with the reps being remote, and we will stream the reps and allow for virtual conversations. Those will be starting out this coming week and will continue throughout the fall. We will have a panel, an alumni panel with alumni really representing different post-secondary pathways, different backgrounds and experiences, talking through tips and strategies to help our current seniors navigate the post-secondary planning process. We'll have another senior seminar for students in January that will really focus on financial aid, analyzing financial aid award letters, things of that nature, checking in on self-care, managing different feelings that can come up throughout the application season. And then we'll come and meet with students again in April to talk through their final post-secondary plans, making sure we have evidence of their post-secondary plans also required for graduation. And then we'll close out programming with the Senior Decision Day activities in May. As you may be aware, students do need to finalize their college choices, assuming they're applying to college and planning to attend a college by the beginning of May. All right, some big highlights from our first seminar with students. We gave them a sense of our goals for the year. For example, counselors want to make sure that we're supporting our students in graduating on time. We want at least 80% of our students to create a profile with CPS Academic Works, the premier scholarship database in CPS. We want our students to ideally raise, $40 million or be offered at least $40 million in scholarships throughout the year, as evidenced by their financial aid award letters that they'll share with their counselor throughout the year. These are some of the things that we are looking to have students do. We want to make sure that our students are setting self-care goals for the year. Their wellness is incredibly important to us. And as part of senior seminar, we did make sure that students had access to their counselor's form to submit a self-care goal for the year that we can help them progress monitor. We gave an overview of Learn, Plan, Succeed graduation requirements. And if you weren't aware, outside of their graduation requirements that we've already talked about over the years, there is also something special for senior year, and that's the Learn, Plan, Succeed graduation requirements that really state that students need to provide evidence of a concrete post-secondary plan to their counselor by the end of the year, and that they need to complete either the FAFSA or the alternative application for Illinois aid by the time they graduate. If for whatever reason students need a waiver for either of those graduation requirements, they just need to see their counselor, and their counselor will provide more information. During the seminar, we also talked through Common App and Naviance, making sure students knew how to link their Common App and Naviance accounts. That's necessary for counselors to be able to submit college materials via Naviance. Those accounts needed to be linked. We also talked through a very specific form, really two forms that each counselor has that will help them manage students' application material requests throughout the year. We'll talk more about those in a second. We talked through test score reporting. The big thing to keep in mind there is that counselors and Jones, we don't send test scores, the SAT or SAT scores to colleges. Students and families need to send those scores independently. For SAT scores, you can send them via the College Board website, and for ACT, via the ACT website. And we just want to make sure that families understand that the scores need to be sent at least 2 weeks prior to a school's application deadline. We also talked through financial aid and scholarships, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in this presentation. We've also sent out a lot of information in the last week and towards the end of last school year around financial aid and scholarships for students and families. And then we talk through student, family, counselor roles and responsibilities. And there's a checklist that we use to help students and families understand their responsibilities. And we'll talk through that in a second in this presentation. All right, if you ever wanted to go directly to our roles and responsibilities checklist, there's a QR code. You can open up your cellular device's camera, and then if it has a QR scanner, and that should take you directly there. We also have it embedded in this presentation. So this is the first of 2 pages for our roles and responsibilities checklist. And it's broken out by things parents and guardians can do, students can do, and counselors can do. The big thing for parents and guardians to be aware of is that when it comes to any fees that students may have, we ask that you support students financially through the process. That could be application fees or sending test scores, etc., sharing your tax information for the purpose of applying for the FAFSA or the alternative app for Illinois aid, and then helping students complete net price calculators for their schools, as well as expected family contribution calculators. And we'll talk more about those in a little bit. The bulk of the responsibilities really fall to students to finalize their college list and their application type when during the application season they're going to be applying, early decision versus early action, or rolling or regular decision, making sure they're adding colleges to their colleges I'm applying to list and Naviance, making sure they have a clear sense of when they're applying. We've already talked about sending the official test scores, requesting official materials like their transcript from their counselor. We'll talk through that process in a second. Requesting letters of recommendation from their teachers via Naviance after teachers say yes, they will write for the student, and then completing the FAFSA or the alternative app or the CSS profile by the deadlines. And then what are counselors really up to? You can see here a list of the different materials that counselors submit to schools for students. We submit most of these materials through Naviance, but if there are other instructions or processes by which schools receive information, we'll send them those ways as well. And then it's really important for us that students will meet one-on-one with us over the next few weeks so we have a clear sense of where they are in their process. One big note, if students are eligible for free or reduced lunch at Jones, they are eligible for application fee waivers via Common App, as well as test application waivers for College Board and ACT. They can see their counselor for more information on that. The second page of the roles and responsibilities document, and it's shared along with via email, along with this presentation and video, just gives high-level overview of some of the tasks that need to be done, such as how students request letters of recommendation from their teachers, how they submit their test scores, how they can apply for additional scholarships as needed, and then some high-level things for them to be thinking about with the FAFSA, the CSS profile, and then some information they may need throughout the application season, such as their counselor's name and contact information, a reminder that we do not rank students for the purpose of college admissions. Their class size is a total of approximately 520 seniors this year, and that whenever they're asked, they should always use our GPA scale of 4.0. Okay? So we've already talked about some of the expectations for parents, providing emotional support to students, encouraging follow through on tasks. If you feel as though your student may need substantial help keeping themselves organized through the application window, we definitely want parents to help in that way. You know, that could look like everything from scheduling time throughout the week or perhaps throughout the month to check in and get a sense of how they're doing, where they are, what deadlines they're working toward, etc., how they're balancing their post-secondary planning with their academics and their own self-care and personal wellness. We've also seen, you know, some families and students use spreadsheet or workbook model where they lay out all of their colleges and scholarships and the application deadlines and the financial aid deadlines and the different materials requested. And just that's the way for the student to keep themselves on track, but also for them to easily communicate with their parents what is needed and when. So that's an opportunity or an option available. And if you feel like your student needs additional support, we strongly recommend that students talk to their counselor about this during their senior one-on-one. But if parents or guardians have any questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to the counselor directly. And then here's a list of all of the things that we want students working on: finalizing their college list, attending the college rep visits, either, you know, through Jones or potentially through the schools themselves. Students are responsible for any work that they miss if they step out of class or not at school to attend rep visits, making sure they submit their counselor college documents request form. We'll talk about that in a second. The senior one-on-ones, making sure they're attending those, completing their Common application if they're applying to schools through Common App, or through the other application systems or portals, could be the college websites themselves or coalition app, etc. Submitting test scores if applicable, requesting their teacher letters, and then completing, you know, the FAFSA, the alternative app, and or the CSS profile. So we do have the college documents request form and the scholarship documents request form. If the question that you might be considering or the student might be considering is, how do I get materials sent to my schools from my counselor? This is how, okay? And there's a deadline system to help the counselors manage the pretty heavy workload of submitting multiple materials from multiple schools for between approximately 70 and 100 students per counselor. So you can see this table embedded here, and it lays out based on the college or scholarship application due date, when students need to submit the request forms to their counselor. And just so we're clear, the request forms cannot be submitted on students' behalf by parents and guardians. These must be submitted via the student CPS emails, from the student through the forms that counselors have now shared in their Google Classrooms. And parents and guardians, if you don't have access to your student's counselor's Google Classroom, you can always reach out to the counselor directly or have the student add you to the classroom as well. So when it comes to the deadlines, for example, if students have materials that are needed by October 1st, on or before October 1st, they needed to get the document request form to their counselor by September 10th. If they have materials that are due on or before October 15th, but after October 1st, they have to get the forms to their counselor by September 30th. And you can see how that breaks down based on the application due dates. The only note that I want to really highlight here is that January 1st due date. Really, after December 1st, we want, if you have any applications due after December 1st, we want students to get their materials to us by December 1st. Submit the forms to us by December 1st. The big issue there being that, we don't want to be in a position where students have application materials due during December, during winter break, when counselors are not available to submit anything. We don't want to be in that situation. So if students have anything due before January 1st, but after December 1st, or on January 1st or after January 1st, we really want them to get us those materials submitted via the forms that the counselor has provided by December 1st. Now, keep in mind, we do appreciate that things come up, some things may happen, and students may be in a position where they need to apply later in the school year, after January 1st. And if that's the case, we just ask the students get the college document request form or the scholarship document request form to their counselor with 2 weeks notice, okay? And those are the big things for folks to be aware of. No matter when students submit their form, the counselor can only guarantee that the documents needed will be submitted by the application due date, okay? And I can show you briefly, I'll show you an example of the college documents request form. Again, this is just the template. Each counselor has provided their own form to students in Google Classroom, but it just asks for a student's last name, first name, their college name, the application portal that they use to apply, the college application type. There's a reminder of the deadlines for the scholarship form and the college application form, absolutely the same. So the student will let us know what is the application deadline, whether or not they want a letter from their counselor. Will they complete the FERPA waiver, which really just states that they do not need to review or see any of the materials that the counselor is submitting on the student's behalf. This is the official process that we use in order to maintain the fidelity of the materials created and submitted. Colleges, universities, and scholarship programs expect that to be the case so that they can trust the materials have not been tampered with or directly influenced by any outside party other than the counselor themselves. And then students can check what application materials they need, understanding that their counselor will only be able to guarantee the documents will be submitted by the application deadline, and if there's any additional notes for the counselor. that gives you just a sense of what it looks like. But again, this is available to students in their accounts with Google Classroom. And there's a version like this for college documents, as well as a version for scholarships as scholarships deadlines hit. Just a quick overview of financial aid. The FAFSA and the alternative app for Illinois Aid both open up on October 1st. The alternative app for Illinois Aid is really for students that would not otherwise be eligible to complete the FAFSA, are undocumented students, students who otherwise would not want to complete the selective service requirements that the FAFSA has based on gender identity. So that's the alternative app. Make sure that students in those situations could still be found eligible for state level Illinois aid. That will not make them eligible for federal aid, but at the very least, they'll be able to potentially earn state level Illinois aid. And then the FAFSA, as I hope we're aware, the free application for federal student aid is how students become eligible for both federal and state aid generally. Okay. There's some instructions here. There's the FAFSA forecaster. You know, if you wanted to get an estimate of what the FAFSA may look like for you and your family, the FAFSA provides, you know, an EFC, expected family contribution, via the student aid report. But if you wanted to get a sense of what that might look like for you and your family prior to completing the FAFSA or the alternative app when they open up in October, you can do the FAFSA forecaster. You will need, for the FAFSA, you will need an FSA ID in order to be able to sign it. So make sure that you are securing your FSA ID if you don't already have one. As was mentioned earlier, we'll have FAFSA completion workshops, alternative app completion workshops available in English and Spanish in October. And keep in mind that some colleges, universities, particularly private colleges, universities, may also require you to do the CSS profile, which is a different financial aid application type. It tends to get into much more detail about a family's financial situation, assets, etc. But you'll need to double check which colleges and universities need that. You can look up the CSS profile to get more information on that, or look at your college and university's websites. There are two big things. A big question that comes up during senior year is, well, should the student be applying for private scholarships or going through the process of setting up an account via, you know, CPS Academic Works, our premier, you know, scholarship database? Really what we want you thinking about before you decide to really put a lot of time and energy into applying for private or individual grants and scholarships. Do you need that money? Because financial aid is primarily around need. Okay, the FAFSA, the alternative app, the CSS profile, they're trying to assess, you know, not how much money you want for school, but how much money does the family need to make college affordable. So each college and university, any college and university in the US that receives any level of federal funding is required to have a net price calculator on their website. And you can Google the school name and net price to find their net price calculator, because some schools might make that a little tricky to get to in their website. And the net price is going to give you just that, based on your family's financial situation and perhaps the student's academic information. It's going to estimate how much that school will cost the student on an annual basis. Okay, so you can see Big Future, affiliated with College Board, has a variety of calculators, financial aid calculators, but you can also go to each college and university's website to see their own individual net price calculator. All right, so that's one of two things we want you to do in order to get a good estimate of whether or not you and your family need to apply for private scholarships. The other is it says here, estimating family contribution. Really, we're talking about the EFC, the expected family contribution calculator. All right. The EFC calculator will do something similar to the FAFSA forecaster and just give you a sense of how much does the federal government estimate that you and your family will be able to pay toward the cost of education on an annual basis. So then once you have each school's net price calculator, you can subtract the EFC, the expected family contribution, and that will give you a sense if there's a gap, if there's leftover financial need. And if there is leftover financial need, then we do suggest that students be prepared to apply for additional scholarships. Okay. One of the big scholarship tools I keep talking about is CPS Academic Works, a curated list of scholarship opportunities for students here in CPS. We do want students to set up a profile with CPS Academic Works so that they will get notifications of the various scholarship opportunities that come up throughout the year. We also have an additional scholarship list, and I will show that briefly. Okay, and once you have this PowerPoint, you can click on all of these hyperlinks, but we do have this curated list of scholarship resources that we've curated here at Jones, like the scholarship program, Chicago Scholars, Posse, Questbridge, all already in progress, Jack Kent Cook Scholarship, Golden Door, Golden Apple. We have, via thebestcolleges.com, the identity specific scholarships if students are looking for specific scholarship opportunities based on their identities. We have a variety of search engines for scholarships listed like CapEx, College Board's Big Future, College Greenlight, CPS Academic Works. I've said now for probably the 5th time. FastWeb, Naviance has scholarships listed as well. And then there's scholarships.com. And there are the links to financial aid calculators, such as the EFC calculator and net price calculators that I've already described. Okay. So then just to close out, how does the counselor support students throughout the year? Making sure students are meeting their graduation requirements, helping students maintain their academic performance and rigor. We realize that for a variety of reasons, many students might feel senioritis, some fatigue or apathy, sluggishness that comes up throughout the year as they move toward potentially graduating and leaving Jones to pursue their post-secondary plans. So we can help support students. That's why one big reason why we set self-care goals with students to make sure they are gaining a sense of what their needs might be this year and ways that they can maintain their momentum. We'll continue to encourage self-care, provide space for students to talk and process as needed, and advocate for additional health and wellness supports depending on each individual student situation. And then on the post-secondary front, we'll submit their required documents to colleges and universities and scholarship entities and continue to provide resources and planning support throughout the year. All right, here's just a quick overview of each counselor's caseloads, just in case you don't have access to that information. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to each counselor directly. That's all for right now. If you need any of this support, students or guardians, if you realize you have follow-up questions, especially if you need support in Spanish, feel free to reach out to Ms. Olga Gutierrez. Her information is at the bottom left here, and she can help connect you with the counselor and help provide some more insight as needed. And we'll be following up with our Spanish-speaking families soon to check in on needs and resources very, very soon. That's it for now. Take care, folks.